A blessed Ostara to you. Let's not waste any time. I want to get into your pick a card messages. So from left to right, we've got the Wildwood Tarot. We have the 7th Sphere Lenormand in the middle. And then we have the Osho Zen Tarot at the very up at the right, the third option, okay? You need to pick the deck that resonates with you the most, and this is a good time to just take a minute and feel your way towards a deck that resonates with you more. As always, with these kinds of messages, if there's something in your particular message that doesn't resonate as much with you, that's probably meant for somebody else, okay? So leave it behind and listen to the other messages that are involved. I'm going to be working with the Wildwood Tarot first. Let's go ahead and get started. There are no reversals in any of these cards. They're not needed. But here I shuffle until Spirit asks me to stop. What's on bottom is that you've got the 6 of Arrows transitioning into a new life altogether. Beautiful swan boat that this particular individual is riding through, and it looks like the wind is quite strong. It's guiding, and the wind is in his sails, so to speak, or in their sails is what I should say. The moon up here is also guiding this traveler's journey, but in the background, you've got the rising sun. There is a new day coming to you. You could be literally moving to a better space. You could be also struggling with leaving the past behind. You may have a lot of emotional attachment with the past. 6 is associated with the Lover's card. This is a choice that you may have been forced to make by the circumstances that you found yourself in. Or you just realized that you needed a better context, and so you weren't forced per se, but you realized that the best choice that you could have possibly made was to leave whatever situation it was. Now, it could be you physically moving away from something. On the other hand, the swords and arrows are about mental energy and also the words that we speak. So you may be mentally leaving something behind. You may be no longer speaking to an individual. You may be cutting somebody off. With this particular card, I'm getting that air energy. So that's going to be a Gemini, a Libra, or, oh my God, I got Pisces in my mind. Are you partly Pisces? Do you have a lot of Pisces in your chart? So, God, I wish I could remember the third one. Gemini, Libra. I'm going to get it. I'm going to be so embarrassed. It must be Mercury retrograde, okay? It is a Mercury retrograde while I'm filming this. I apologize. I have not forgotten you, left behind air sign. On the top, I do see that you've got quite a bit of heavy energy. This is almost getting home. This particular weight bearer has just a little ways left to go before he is home. There's a massive bonfire in the background that is waiting for him to add those particular sticks, possibly to the bonfire, but possibly they're celebrating him bringing new bows, untethered bows that will be used for a hunt, for instance. But the responsibility that you have is quite heavy. Now, this is you actually taking action on this. So earlier I had said that it may be mentally or verbally cutting somebody off and not speaking to them anymore, but this also ties to the idea of you have a deep responsibility at the very least to yourself, and if you have kids, you feel a very deep responsibility to those particular kids to get them to a safer, better place. Or if you don't have any kids, you don't have to have kids. Maybe you've got fur babies that you need to get to a safer place. Wherever you've been in the past wasn't working out anymore, it was time for you to leave, but I also see that it wasn't the most painless thing imaginable, okay? 10 is associated with the Wheel of Fortune. That's all about change, about the ups and the downs of life, and they can be rough. That's also quite a bit of fire energy. So check in your birth chart where your air and your fire signs are okay. Now here we've got the Blasted Oak. With the Wildwood Tarot, this is an interesting combination of the Tower and the Hanged Man. So this particular entity was the Hanged Man, but then the lightning of the Tower hit the tree and he can no longer stay up. Now, he does have fire around his wrists and his ankles, but it isn't actually burning him. That fire is burning the bindings that were keeping him held to that particular tree. And now he's coming to the ground, whether he wants it that way or not. He may have been too comfortable in that particular tree. And so, again, I said earlier that this was likely not a painless situation. It does not appear that it was. It appears that whether you wanted to be forced out of this situation or whether you made a choice to actually leave the situation for a better environment, that doesn't mean that your hand was kind of forced, it feels like, right here. This particular entity, I'm sorry for my shitty camera, is not surprised that this happened. It's like he knew that this was coming. And often, not always, but often, lightning doesn't come out of nowhere on a sunny sky, okay? It comes during a storm. And so in a sense, this particular entity may have realized that there was some lightning coming simply because the storm clouds were gathering, okay? So you may have seen the situation for what it was and you said, enough is enough. It's time for me to head out. Now, the Tower and the Hanged Man, or I should say the Tower at least, is associated with fire energy. So here we've got 2 fire energy cards. You're someone who is willing to take action under the right circumstances, but at the same time, you may struggle with that. You may have some earth energy in your birth chart that may help you feel grounded, but at the same time can make it more difficult to move out of situations that aren't good for you, okay? And to be honest, you're in that boat with a whole lot of other people, okay? Humans like being comfortable. They like being stable. Let's just start with that, okay? Now, this is interesting. I'm doing a 3x3 spread, so this is being laid on top of the 6 of arrows. This is the 5 of vessels, ecstasy. It's a very different version of the 5 of cups that we associate with the Rider-Waite-Smith. This particular individual is dancing to the beat of her own drum. She's dancing alone, but she is feeling great joy. So in spite of how potentially painful this particular situation was, you having to leave, it feels damn good. 5 is associated with the Hierophant, so you are definitely being guided by your ancestors, your deities, the universe, to head on to another place. And while you may not feel good right now, because coming crashing to the ground, it doesn't feel good. Being singed even a little bit, maybe not being touched, burned by the flame that you see with these bindings, that may not feel good. But you do know that it's for your best and your highest good. And eventually you're going to feel a whole lot better once you actually land on firm ground and you are no longer in transition. Okay? Let the past go. If you can do cord cutting ceremonies, cord cutting spells for yourself, to let the past go, or if you can get into some meditative cycles, or I should say some meditative habits that would help you let go of the past, that's going to be for your benefit, okay? We've got another celebration card right after the 5 of vessels. You've got the 8 of bows. Hearth fire. And this is so interesting because 8 of bows, hearth fire, lands on top of the 10 of bows, almost as if it's telling a story. Once you get to where you're meant to be, even though the responsibility is heavy on your shoulders, you are going to be heavily celebrated. 8 being the number of justice. This is right. You're meant to be with these particular people, whether they are friends, whether they're family. You were meant to be around these particular people, even though you went through a trial. You know what? This may be someone who left a romantic relationship, and friends and family have been cheering you on for quite some time, asking you when you're ready to leave this romantic relationship. And now that you finally left, not a painless transition, by the way, you're being celebrated. You're celebrating yourself. People around you are celebrating. Take it as it resonates. But this was a situation that was time. It was time for this situation to expire. Okay? Another celebration card. 6 of Bows. Look at that. Abundance. Because you landed on the ground, because you or your situation ended a particular cycle, a lifestyle, now you're getting all kinds of abundance that may or may not be expected. You weren't looking forward to abundance necessarily, but you're also going to be the kind of person to welcome it in too. You were just looking to get out of whatever situation this was. Now, I'm not getting any cups. Well, I lied. I'm sorry. We do have some cups energy right here, but I've got a whole lot of fire energy with this. So it might have been a romantic relationship. It might have also been a job situation that was just the dead albatross around your neck. You wanted to leave, but you couldn't leave because you got to pay bills, right? We all have bills to pay. So this was a context where finally you got to leave. You may have been laid off. You may have been fired for performance issues, even though you may have been one of the best workers that company or that organization ever had. Okay? Take it as it resonates. But now you are graduating on to an incredible divine abundance. Okay? Damn. Dude, you've got a lot of fiery celebratory energy right here. We have one whole row of celebration stuff, and now we've got another row with the sun. Look at this. Look at all that. You left. You're delighted that you got to leave. And now you're on to, you're on to long-term happiness. Isn't that incredible? We got the Queen of Arrows in the form of a swan. We saw a swan boat earlier with the 6 of Arrows. You're moving on to other parts. Now you can free your mental capabilities. Now you are free to say what it is that you want to say. With the 6 of Arrows, that was a swan boat that's not alive. It's made of wood. It's painted to look like a swan, but it isn't actually a swan. You were in a situation that didn't feel real to you. It's not a place where you were happiest. It's not a place where you felt good. You didn't feel like you could be yourself in that context. But this tells me that now you are free to be yourself. The swan is comfortable both in the water and in the air, which is absolutely a great way to personify the Queen of Arrows, also known as the Queen of Swords. Now, I should say that this learning experience is going to it's going to be a learning experience. I hate to say it like that, but it's going to teach you to filter out people who you don't want to be around and who don't want to be around you. This was a heavy responsibility, but you have arrived, or you're about to arrive, wherever you may be, and now you're going to be a whole lot more discerning about who it is that you let into your life. If you were with work partners or with a romantic partner who just did not vibe with you, now you've learned to not be around those people, or at least to get away from them as fast as you can if you do find yourself around those kinds of people again. This was not a painless experience, I can see with the blasted oak, but on the other hand, this has taught you to grow in new directions that you didn't expect to grow. Got the Knight of Bows, a whole lot more wily, a lot more intelligent. Foxes are incredibly intelligent creatures. Now, stereotypically, they've been associated with stealing farmers' stuff, whether that's hens' eggs or actually killing livestock, small livestock, for instance. That's what it's traditionally associated with, but I think that the modern day sense is a whole lot more friendly towards foxes than they have been in the past. Nonetheless, you're going to be a whole lot more wise. You're going to know how to move a whole lot more wisely when it comes to who you speak to, how you think about yourself, how you think about others, and also in what kind of action you're going to take. You're going to want to protect this abundance, because after the Tower moment, it forces you to grow. After the blasted oak moment is what I should say. that's going to be a point where you've grown so much that you're not going to want to go back to old situations. You're going to do what you can to get away from them. Even if people call you a selfish bitch, for instance, let go of those people. They don't understand you, or they're jealous of where you are in life, and you need to let that go. Remember that your abundance is to be protected. The fox has all kinds of cute kits. Okay, and those kids need access to the abundance that you earned as well. And I see you as someone like, you know what? I just realized is both of these creatures are tremendous fighters. Swans can knock humans out with their massive, very powerful wings, and you don't want to fuck with a fox, right? Even though they're small, man, you don't want to tangle with them. Both of these are animals that are not predators. Well, this one isn't so much, okay? But they are perfectly capable of defending themselves, and especially they're young. That goes back to if you have children, if you have fur children, it doesn't matter. You're someone who is deeply protective of the peace within yourself. Now, the Knight of Bows is associated with the Prince. The Prince of Wands, or the Prince of Fire even. That's going to be heavy fire and air energy. So once again, a whole lot of fire, a whole lot of air in this particular reading. This is a good year to finally break out of the box, so to speak, that you may have been held back in. Because now for a number of years, it's been heavy earth and water energy when it comes to astrological transits and how they interact with the zodiac signs that may be transiting through your birth chart. But this year is heavy fire energy, and it does burn things away. And that can be a painful process for a whole lot of people, and most especially yourself. But at the same time, I feel like you're someone who does well with rapid change. It's not always comfortable for you, but once you get your wheels rolling, you actually do the change. And a lot of people I can see can be jealous of that. This is a time to be aware of when to whack people, figuratively, okay? And when to stay back. When to just let them ride along their way and ignore them, to filter them out of your life. Remember that you are a beautiful work of art, that you can be both cute and beautiful at the same time. Okay, there's an elegance to you that deserves to be recognized, and I hope that you recognize it within yourself. You were born a work of art, flaws and all, and as long as you can recognize that within yourself, you can be in a better place, okay? It doesn't matter your network, your friends, the people that you connect to bring yourself to higher places. It doesn't matter about your money or your looks or anything like that. You were born a work of art, period. End of sentence. And with that, I hope that you have a blessed, wonderful Ostara, a wonderful spring equinox. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Thank you for watching. Group number 2, welcome to your reading. I'm using the 7th Sphere Lenormand by Tina Gong at Labyrinthos. Beautiful set of cards. What happens here is I shuffle until Spirit asks me to stop, okay? We've got Clover. Kind of fitting for the season, okay? This is at the spring equinox season. I'm going to be doing a 7-card spread to kind of get a look at your situation, okay? But this is about luck, risk, and reward at the same time. It's also about a certain kind of lightheartedness that you may feel around a particular situation. So that's your central theme. I'm going to start laying out your cards. To the left of Clover is Fish. Being lucky when it comes to money, or the things that are deeply powerful, or I should say deeply valuable to you. It may be money, but you may also be dirt poor and have something that's of great, the pearl of great price to you. That can be anything. It can be anything material. It can be anything immaterial. It can be your own spiritual path. It can be anything, okay? I'm getting love. There's something that you love deeply. Your pearl of great price is something that you love deeply. You got lucky with this. You may also be quite light in heart about it too. It brings you a tremendous amount of joy. You can feel the love coming from this particular thing that you value so, so deeply, okay? You may value love. You may have children, and your children may be your pearls of great price, or your child may be your pearls of great price. This is to the left of fish. Heart is to the right of the clover, and the clover is the central theme, okay? So you may be treasuring your children greatly at this particular time. If you're in the United States, this is the time of spring break, and you may just be enjoying your time with your kids right now. You may be recognizing what's going on in the United States, and you may be realizing that this is kind of the end of an era for the United States, that it's gradually transformed into, well, I wouldn't say gradually, it's quickly transformed into a kind of dictatorship. And you're realizing that when things get really, really nasty, all that matters are the kids. That's all that matters, and you may feel very lucky that you've got them in your life. It looks like you love them to pieces right here. That's wonderful. I see that you're established. This is the white lily of establishment, about retirement. You don't have to be retired in order to feel grounded. And it looks like you're in a situation where if you're not in a romantic partnership, you don't have to be, but you can have a very powerful, loving relationship with your kids that makes you feel firm and stable. The lily is to the right of the heart, okay? You've got clouds to the left of the child. This may be about you not seeing clearly about any news that's coming along. And to be honest, not even a lot of psychics, even myself included, can see clearly what's going to happen. A lot of the times the universe, our deities, our ancestors, keep some things concealed about the future, because if we knew something about it, then we would throw things off course in a way that the universe does not want things thrown off. As hard as a message like that may be to swallow, we are meant to go with the flow in some things and resist in others. There is some news coming. You do feel tremendously lucky about these kids, because this child, I should say, because the child in this particular case lands on the house of the clover. That's about risk, reward, once again, luck, feeling lighthearted. But there's some news coming around about this particular situation. You might have to move very quickly if you're in the United States. I apologize for the ethnocentrism of this particular reading, but you may end up having to move to safer ground for you and your family quickly, because what's going on in the United States is moving quickly, and you are established. I can see that. But this is all about home being where the heart is. You can move away quickly. You can be forced to leave your belongings behind because you have to get out that quickly. And at the end of the day, you're going to recognize that what is most valuable are your kids. And you don't have to have like human kids in order to have this reading resonate with you. You could also have fur babies. That's just as important, okay? But you are lucky in this particular situation if you can get out. I'm speaking to a person who may identify as feminine when it comes to gender identity. Keep in mind that there is no real gender in Lenormand or tarot, okay? None of the cards that I read with. Really, it just talks about you having some feminine tendencies. You can be someone who identifies as a man, but you have such a nourishing spirit that nourishing, nurturing spirit may show up as anima. Okay? So you may also have a very profound relationship, a profound sexual relationship with a woman who you want to protect at all costs. With the clouds and anima together, that may be a part of you or a part of her that doesn't see the path forward clearly, because home is very comfortable, and being forced to move out of this particular situation would be uncomfortable, okay? Humans love stability, but there comes a time where in order to keep that stability, you need to move out of a situation quickly. And that's the correct choice to make. Now, once again, you are lucky. There is a risk in moving abroad, moving elsewhere if you are in the United States or if you're in an unstable area. There is some risk within that, but there's also a great deal of reward. Clover, in this particular case, lands on the house of the house, which is about the things that we keep away from closed doors, we keep behind closed doors, that we keep safe and protected, and that would be our family, for instance. Now, this is interesting. Fish lands on the house of ship, which it's interesting because where else would fish be, right? But in the sea. Ship is about a long distance journey. It's not just about traveling a short distance, let's say, for instance, within a state, if you're in the United States, or within a province, if you're in someplace like Australia or Canada or someplace like that. It's about going a little bit further, possibly overseas, okay? And I suspect that there is something deeply valuable for you and your family if you choose to head there. That doesn't mean that the adjustment won't be severe for some people, but I am getting that with, again, if you're in the United States, that things are not going to be stable for a lot of people for much longer. You might be in a gay relationship, for instance. I may be speaking to a woman who has developed a family with another woman. In that particular case, I wish you all kinds of luck. Really, because after we all know how this goes. When they get done with one set of minorities, they go after the other minorities because people like this are zombies. They cannot stop. They are cancerous. They cannot stop consuming. They cannot stop their rule of fear, their hunger for power. Well, they can, but they choose not to. I wish you all the luck. I wish you all the safety. You deserve safety. Okay. One more thing. I noticed that Lily lands on the house of clouds. You may be closeted to some degree, or you may not see how wonderfully well you are established. One of those may resonate. Okay, it depends on where you are and who you are as an individual. On the one hand, it could be that you've taken for granted how you've established yourself over the years, and it's not until you actually leave that you realize how much you were forced to leave behind. Okay? On the other hand, if I am speaking to two women who are in a relationship, who are married, who have a family together, this is about you being closeted while you live in this particular area where it may not be safe to come out. And I hope that you don't have to be closeted wherever you're going. I'm getting from Spirit that no, you will not. I'm really hoping that you choose a place where you can raise your family in peace. But I feel like that's not going to be the case for the United States much longer, and I am so sorry. It's not fair. Well, let's talk about heart. It lands on the house of the tree. It's about growing. A love that has been growing for quite some time. And that's pretty much it. The trees, we need trees. They are the lungs of the world, okay? And in many ways, love is the lungs, the spiritual lungs for many of us, okay? For the vast majority of us. That we need love in order to thrive. That makes perfect sense to me. Now, be aware with anima that it lands on the house of the snake, and that's not a liar or a two-faced individual at all, but it could be that y'all are deceiving yourselves, or you are deceiving yourself about how safe the situation may be. You might be in a red state if you are in the United States. You might be in a more conservative area even if you are in a blue state. But be careful not to close your eyes to a situation that is gradually, even quickly getting worse. You need to be able to leave quickly. Even when things seem kind of smooth right now, later on it may be more difficult for you to leave, and even later on it might be more leaning towards impossible to leave. Leaving now, while it's still safe and peaceful to do so, is one of the easiest ways to make this particular transition, which may be just rough for y'all, because you might be leaving behind friends and family and habits and workplaces and a home that you really enjoyed. But when a nest is no longer safe, it's time for the parent birds to get the baby birds out and go to another nest that is safe. Okay? No more from me. I really hope that you get to be safe this particular spring equinox. I hope that you get to enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Please be safe. Group number 3, you picked the Osho Zen Tarot. I love this deck for helping me become a better meditator, to focusing on the death of my ego. I look forward to using this deck frequently, okay? So let's take into the messages that Spirit has for you. There are no reversals with this particular tarot deck, at least with the way that I practice. Another tarot reader may have those reversals, okay? The card that flipped out when I was shuffling is compromise. This is the 6 of Rainbows. So these particular characters are enemies, but at the moment they're making a compromise so that they can work on a project together, a nefarious project, okay? So be cautious of this individual, but also be cautious of the idea that you may be compromising on a situation that should not be compromised on. That was the first card of your spread, so be cautious when you are compromising your safety, who you truly are. Be careful especially about compromising on your spiritual path. Rainbows is the analogy, I should say, for pentacles. So there may be something that you are compromising when it comes to your material security, the things that make your body comfortable, that should not be compromised on, okay? 2 more shuffles, says Spirit, and then we stop and lay out the rest of the cards. What's on bottom is abundance. Now, you've been blessed with kind of a decent amount of abundance, and there's the possibility, there's the risk that people are stealing from you, and you're kind of allowing it to happen in a sense because you want to keep the peace, because you feel like you need to work with these people. Spirit is saying you do not need to work with these people, that you need to let them go and move on to better and higher places, even if it's difficult for you to do so. Taking from the top, we have conditioning. This is the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith Devil card. This particular lion thinks that it's a sheep, and in fact it's wearing a sheep skin. It thinks that it's a sheep. It is not. It spends all its time around people. It spends its time around people who just operate unconsciously. Even though you have abundance, it's easier for you to operate on autopilot. It's easier for you to operate unconsciously like the people around you because it's just easier. This is a compromise that should not be made. You have been blessed with a tremendous amount of abundance, and you need to recognize that. You need to not hide how abundant you are. Obviously, don't be prideful about it. Don't be a show-off, boastful kind of person, but don't hide it either. You've been blessed for a reason. People are meant to look up to you for a reason. This is the King of Rainbows. This is Zorba the Buddha, okay? It's it's an interesting combination, an amalgamation of the dancing Zorba, but also a Buddha. This is someone who fully enjoys what the material has to offer, but also is fully spiritual at the same time. The perfect combination of both spiritual and material. This is not a skinny Buddha by any means. This is someone who knows how to dance, eat, have a good time, but also when to spend many hours in meditation, is capable of spending many hours in meditation. You have forgotten who you are while compromising or going along to get along, is what I'm hearing. This is not the time to go along to get along. Pluto in Aquarius wants to bless you and move you on to remembering who you are. Pluto in Aquarius is about the collective, about the individual, as opposed to Pluto in Capricorn, the previous transit, being about authoritarian structures, like the people who rule over us, as opposed to the collective. It emphasizes the needs of the ruling class over us, the regular everyday person. Okay? You've forgotten who you are. You've got past lives. This is the time to focus on the present, because you may have some karmic debt from a past life that involves you compromising with the wrong people, with people who wanted to steal your abundance for themselves and share nothing with you. This may be a karmic habit that you have maintained over many lifetimes, or maybe just a few lifetimes. Take it as it resonates, okay? But this is a habit that's meant to be cut, that's meant to be destroyed, because it's holding you back from being Zorba the Buddha. Fully material, fully spiritual, all in one. Remember that you are a work of art, that you were born that way. The world likes to tell people what they are, what they should be. Ignore that. Or learn to ignore that, okay? You can't just ignore it inside a day, okay? But learn to ignore that and recognize yourself as the work of art that you were born as, flaws and all. That doesn't mean that you don't still have shadow work to do. You do. Everybody does, okay? But that also doesn't mean that you aren't a work of art that should be recognized that way, that you shouldn't be giving in to people who don't deserve to share your abundance. And instead, you should be finding the people who do deserve to be around you, because they're also in another kind of cool spiritual boat where they are coming into their own level of abundance, okay? Beyond illusion. This is the Judgment card. This particular individual has meditated to the point that they have up-leveled themselves, that they have finally let go of their ego. You need to recognize that you've been blessed, even if you are cash poor, okay? You don't have that many resources. You have been blessed with some incredible talents. You might be an incredible person to be around, and you allowing others to leech off of your incredible energy. You might be an incredible empath, is what I should also say. In fact, I'm wondering if in a past life, you weren't someone who was a kind of psychic, a medium, someone who was able to communicate with the spiritual world, and other people have brought you down over lifetimes because they were jealous, because the real with them saw the real within you and wanted to tear that apart, because it made them feel a certain way about themselves. And so instead of dealing with themselves, they fuck with you. It's a deeply destructive energy that you deserve to get away from. You deserve to remember that you are a lion and not a sheep. And to be honest, if these sheep were honest with themselves, they might not be sheep themselves either. They might not be lions. They might be something else entirely. But you are meant to recognize, you're meant to have that spiritual butterfly open within you, to emerge from your chrysalis, formerly a little worm, what looked like a little worm, and to emerge something absolutely gorgeous. Okay? Now this is the Prince of Clouds that I pulled right here, Mind. It's meant to be an ugly card in order to kind of show how often when our mind goes trailing off into different places, once you really pay attention to what your mind is doing, you're kind of like, why am I thinking of this? Why am I projecting, for instance? Why didn't I remember that? Why did I say that? Why am I thinking about that? Why am I thinking that about myself? Why am I thinking that about others? Once you slow your mind down, don't allow fear to consume you. Don't allow fear of falling behind, missing out to consume you. Then you can start to recognize yourself as the creature that you always were, and not as someone who was just there to blend in and do the same thing as everybody else. Pluto in Aquarius wants you to crack out of that shell that you've been in now, that you've been hiding in even now for a long time. For generations is what I should say, lifetimes. Crack out of that shell. What did I just say? This is the Page of Water. Page of Cups, if you will. You're being given a message. It's time to leave. You're not meant to be in this cage anymore. Those bars are dissolving away once you recognize that you're meant to be free of people who would... Do you remember the story of the rainbow fish? It's relevant, I promise. The rainbow fish is a children's story, if you're not familiar, of a beautiful fish who has rainbow scales, and all the other fish are jealous of this particular rainbow fish. And the point of the story is that the rainbow fish needs to share his scales. So he pulls the scales off his body and shares them with the other fish. And then he starts to look like the other fish because all his rainbow scales are gone. By the way, fish need scales. You can't just tear them off and let the fish live. It's supposed to be a kind, cool story for kids about sharing. But the flip side of that is that you are shredding yourself to make other people happy. Going along to getting along is destroying you. You need to realize that you deserve to be free of these people. Don't be around people who don't like you, who don't want to be around you. You deserve better than them. You deserve to be around people who recognize themselves as maybe not necessarily sheep, but as other creatures who are also wearing sheep skin. Going along to get along is not going to work forever, and it really should not. It does not work. It's really not working out for you right now. There's a better way of doing things. You deserve to be free. I strongly recommend, as these cards also recommend, starting a meditative practice. Even 5 or 10 minutes a day is fantastic. A lot of people recommend at most 20 minutes a day. More than that, and you risk getting into some dangerous territory, okay? Dr. K, the healthy gamer psychologist, I think he's a psychologist, has a lot of really good information on meditative practices, what's good, what's healthy, what's unhealthy, that kind of thing. I strongly recommend starting there. But also, there are a number of wonderful beginner meditative videos on YouTube that aren't behind a paywall that you can watch and rewatch as you practice. Remember that bringing your mind back to the present moment, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, what you're seeing even, is part of the meditative practice. It takes practice, okay? And I'll speak for myself and say, as a Gemini, as a sun in Gemini, it's really easy to see my mind going, flitting around from one thing to another, and pretty soon I'm wondering, how did I get there? I was just listening to this wonderful meditative music. How did I get there? That's right here with the page of clouds. The mind, when it's not, when you don't recognize it as something to hold in, to rein in, when you recognize your mind as yourself, when in fact you should be having a more detached understanding of your mind, because it kind of does its own thing. And your mind, when you go from body to body, does different things. Ultimately, the way that we stop reincarnating from lifetime to lifetime is learning the lesson that our minds are to be held in, reined in, that we're not meant to run away with fear, that we're not meant to go along to get along. Eventually, when we reach ego death, there's the idea that we will no longer need to be reincarnated because we will all learned all the karmic lessons that we need to learn. There's that idea, okay? We've got what is traditionally the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Sun card. This is innocence. This is an elderly man who has learned pretty much all the lessons that life has to teach him. And he's been able to relieve his mind in such a way that he's able to look at nature in a very bright and happy way. He's able to look at nature, from the mind of a child. He's gone through it. He's gone past it. He's learned the lessons that he's need to learn. He's towards the end of his life. But at the end is a childlike, sweet innocence. You can see the cherry blossoms in the background. It makes sense considering that I'm reading for this around the spring equinox. Okay. You are meant to be in a wonderful place with your inner child and your inner adult working well together. You are meant to be flying free away from people who would have you be a certain kind of way. Here are your cards. 3x3. This is your middle row. Once you recognize yourself for the deeply abundant person who can both enjoy the spiritual and the material all at once, that's when you can start to realize your own ego death. And that's when you can realize true happiness, full innocence, unity between inner adult and inner child that was always meant to be there, but that the world separates us from. Okay, one more card. A new vision. This is 12. This is normally the Hanged Man, but in this particular case, this character is dancing with the universe, with the sacred geometry that's behind them. There are flames, there are wings around this particular person. I know I've got a shitty camera, but there's a form of this particular individual kneeling down here. This individual has risen up from how they used to be, and now they're flying towards a new way of doing things, and that's going to be dependent on you. But gradually releasing yourself from your mind is going to be the key to you coming into who you're truly meant to be. You don't have to wear sheepskin anymore. You don't have to go along to get along anymore. You may feel like you do. And for some of you may be forced to do so because you're in a situation where you have to be a certain way in order to get along with coworkers or with romantic partners or friends or family. Take it as it resonates, but keep in mind that you're meant for more. You're not meant to go along to get along. You're not meant to blend in with people. You're meant to be unique. You were always meant to be unique. Everyone is their own work of art. No one has to be an NPC. No one has to be a bot, if you want to go with that particular terminology. Everyone needs to recognize, every human needs to recognize that they are their own work of art, and you are no different. It's time to let go of old patterns that no longer serve you. This won't be an easy process. It won't happen overnight, but you deserve this particular process. You deserve this spiritual transformation, okay? No more from me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful spring equinox. Take care.